This is Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Welcome to the podcast, Chris Graham and Rod Mullins, and we're going to talk some NASCAR. As NASCAR was in sort of our neck of the woods in Martinsville this past weekend. Brad Keselowski with the big win, and let's start there, Rod. How did it all go down, and what are some of the storylines coming out of Martinsville with Keselowski's win?
Well, the storyline coming out of Martinsville more than anything else is the fact that it seems like at least the Joe Gibbs racing team, some of that racing right in between there with Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, some of that now has been broken up, and it's been broken up by the Ford teams, and primarily Team Penske, and that's the one that has really shook things up so far this year. I think I made mention about it before about the Mustang coming onto the scene, and they really have staked their claim, so to speak, in NASCAR since coming over to the Cup Series. They were already in the Xfinity Series, but they have really established themselves, I think, as probably the premier program right now. As Brad Keselowski, leading 446 of 500 laps to win this race, and it's the most that any driver in a single race since Kyle Petty led 484 laps at Rockingham back in 1992. And he picked up his 29th career win with that, his second triumph in 19 starts at Martinsville. So, it was a big day for him and also for Team Penske. But, you've got to at least give some credit to Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott was the one trying to mount a last lap surge, try to get some momentum off Keselowski, and he wanted to, as he told some of the media afterwards, he wanted to kind of root him out a little bit, see if he could go and get up underneath him and maybe try to win the race. But the Camaro was good. They felt pretty good about it, but there at the end, if he could have got to him, he probably would have won the race if he'd moved up a little bit sooner. But still, it was a good performance there, at least from the Camaro and also Chase Elliott. Team Hendrick has been suffering through some of this stuff. But, as it stands right now, Kyle Busch, he was frustrated once again losing this race. He felt like he had the car to beat in this whole thing. I was really impressed with none other than Eric Almirola having a good performance in this race. And, for a while there, some people thought he was actually going to make a run to the top, but he didn't make it there. But still, another great performance for him in the Tony Stewart Haas race team.
So we'll talk about Texas and Bristol, which is not that far away, as we wrap up our podcast. Let's now switch gears and go sort of behind the scenes, go back in the garage, talk about some NASCAR, the qualifying changes. Take us into this story here as we get some adaptations to how we do the qualifying every week.
Well, this has really come out of a big snafu that happened at Auto Club Speedway out in California here a couple of weeks ago. And some of the drivers, what they do is they try to go and see if they can squeeze in the best times within their previous two practice runs that they have and everything to try to get up there for qualifying. And what they did was it's sort of like a game of chicken. The last time that they had a chance to go out and be able to qualify and at least get some good speed, some of the drivers weren't happy with their speed, some were happy with their speed, and they thought that everything was going to work out. And what happened was the people that were at the California Speedway at Auto Club, the fans were in the stands and they were booing NASCAR's drivers for this, and rightly so. I just don't think it was a very good move by some of the drivers, some of the crew chiefs especially, thinking that they could pull off something like that and see that the fans would not be frustrated down it. Because NASCAR said, instead of making a laughing stock like what they did in California, they're going to change the way that they the time and also some of the ways they have in order to get out there and to qualify, and they better take care of it and do what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, they'll be penalized like what happened. They didn't really penalize anybody after that particular snafu that happened in California, but now they're threatening if they do something like this again, there will be penalties that the teams will have to pay for in the long run.
Yeah, that was odd to say the least, no question. And another change, and when I first read about this, I thought, why would they be announcing the 2020 schedule so early? It could be this week. But then, you start thinking about it. You kind of know from year to year where NASCAR goes in certain weeks, so maybe it's not such a big deal. But that said, yeah, we might get a very early look at the 2020 schedule here in the next few days. Take us more into this story, Rod.
Well, there was one story coming out that today could be the day that NASCAR releases their 2020 schedule. And Steve O'Donnell, who is NASCAR's Chief Racing Development Officer, said on Monday, he told a program called The Morning Drive that they were looking to make some tweaks to the schedule, but they were expected to announce the 2020 schedule sometime this week. And so what it means is right now they're looking at the possibility instead of Homestead being the finishing race for the season, they may make Phoenix the finishing race, or the race that will conclude, and the award ceremony will take place after that. Of course, we've already heard that the award ceremony is going to be moving to Nashville, Tennessee, and so that will be taking place. So besides that, they're looking to announce some other cool things that have been discussed and things that are being talked about. And one of the things, Chris, it has to do with, they're talking about doubleheader weekends. And I think that's going to be, when I say doubleheader weekend, it's not exactly going to be Xfinity on Saturday and Cup on Sunday. It may mean Saturday night or Saturday afternoon, Xfinity gets out on the track, runs their race, and then followed by the NASCAR Cup race immediately after that. They're talking about bunching this thing up and putting them together. And I know what they're wanting to do. They're wanting to make sure they get more bang for their buck, get the fans in there instead of spreading them out over 2 days. It changes the schedule, and it also makes it a little bit more marketable when it comes to the TV schedule. And they don't compete, per se, with NFL football games like we talked about here a couple of weeks earlier. So we have yet to find out what the official schedule is going to be, except for we know that right now Phoenix looks to be the race that's going to end the season for them in 2020. We don't know where some of the races, some of the other races schedule will fall. Pocono has entertained some different changes in their lineup. What they will have, instead of having 2 races, they might have one race, but they will go and race 2 big races on that particular weekend. So there's going to be some changes, and I think it's all toward marketing and trying to get some things out there coming up before they go to the Generation 7 car, because the Generation 7 car is going to require, I think, more than just Chevrolet, Ford, and Toyota in the mix. They're looking to add some more car brand names in there. And we could be talking about Nissan. We could be talking about Kia. We could be talking about a variety of different cars that will be joining by the time they get this Generation 7 car in. And the 2020 race schedule would look perfect, kind of matching those 2 up for the future.
So let's go back to the track now. Sunday at 3 o'clock, we're at Texas Motor Speedway. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series heads to Texas. And so what can we look forward to this weekend on the track?
Well, anybody's guess at Texas, because Texas is one of those tracks, especially in the springtime, that if you get there in Texas, if there's a cold spell or a little bit of a cool spell, you have a chance of being able to really stick to the racetrack. Sometimes, especially when you get that temperature up in the tires and also the track starts to warm up a little bit more, you've got a pretty good racetrack. But also, you get there and it's hot, and the tires get packed on, you're going to have a lot more stick, and it's going to be a little bit more trouble for the cars to kind of move around the way that they want to. One thing that we don't want is a lot of rain. If we have a lot of rain, or if they've had a lot of rain, Texas did this one year, and that was a weeping problem with the track itself. Water started weeping out of the track, and they had to quit a couple of times so they could go and get some of that water out and pull it out of the track, at least through a vacuum, or at least through the dryers and everything there, trying to dry the track out. But Texas has come a long way in the last few years. But I think the big thing is going to be, will we see this Team Penske thing continue to roll along, or will Joe Gibbs Racing start to make their move, or will Tony Stewart-Haas Racing, will they make their move into this whole thing? They've kind of been there with Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola, and Clint Boyer's kind of been there a couple of times. But Daniel Suarez had a really good race this past weekend. He raced pretty good at Martinsville. It could be his weekend. Actually, he'll be in front of some home crowd people. He's over from Mexico. He's originally from Juarez, Mexico. There'll be a lot of people coming over and coming up to Dallas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area to see this race. I think it would be good for him, but we'll really see whether or not Team Penske continues this domination. And you still have people out there like Mark Truex who's looking for their first win. And even though it's not a short track, Martinsville is a short track. This is a 1.5-mile track. He'll be going to Bristol the next week. This is kind of a tune-up for these particular tracks, Martinsville was, to see how well these cars are going to perform. And the one thing that I heard Rusty Wallace talking about this past week at the Martinsville race is that big 9-inch or so spoiler that they have on the back of the car, providing so much downforce on these cars. And at first, it was considered to be maybe a negative. But when you go to a track like Martinsville, of course, then you go to Texas, and especially to Bristol, that's going to help that much more, especially on the high bank of Bristol, because that gives you more downforce. It holds the rear end of that car from scooting around and getting away from the driver. So then it's up to the driver to do some smart driving, especially at Texas, but even more so at Bristol Motor Speedway. So we'll see some close racing, I'm sure, at Texas this coming weekend. And all of that will be leading up to the main one coming up at Bristol here in about 2 weeks. And by the way, remember the famous words of Kurt Busch, stay away from the 17 car. That's Rick Stenhouse. So I guess that's what everybody's trying to stick to this week also. Stay away from the 17 car at Texas and especially at Bristol, because they're going to be a wild driver right now, Chris.
Now, so Texas is this weekend. You've mentioned Bristol a couple times here. Are you getting ready for Bristol? That's one of the two big ones, and we always send you down there. Are you ready? Are you pacing yourself, getting ready for Bristol in a couple weeks?
Yeah, I'm very anxious for Bristol in the next couple of weeks, and what I think is going to be even more incredible is this race and where it's going to be pivotal and so forth. And I've got something right now. I got to tell you that I've just got hot off the press, and this has come from Bristol Motor Speedway. I've subscribed to them, and they have sent some information to me. This is the big one right here. America's Night Race is going to be moving to a pivotal playoff spot in the NASCAR 2020 Monster Energy Cup Series schedule. So the fans have been pleading over and over for many years to get the August race, or at least that race where they can move and try to put that race into the playoff spot. Well, according to a press release here issued this afternoon, that the Bass Pro Shops NRA Night Race is now going to be moving to Saturday night, September the 19th, and will become the first cutoff race during the 2020 NASCAR playoffs. And rightly so. I think this race has deserved that for a long time, and finally NASCAR management is seeing that this is going to be an even bigger race come September, just like the spring race is going to be coming up in 2 weeks for me. It's going to be a big one. There's going to be a lot of excitement moving in on this one coming up.
That's exciting, yes, indeed, for fans of NASCAR in our area here. And so as we finish up the podcast here, it's March. I want to ask a March Madness question, Rod. Rod, for our listeners out there, you know that he's based in Southwest Virginia, so that means, all right, we know your allegiance, UVA Sports, your allegiance there, but you also have Virginia Tech. You've got Tennessee just down the road from you, Kentucky, I guess just over the border a little bit away. So for the Sweet 16 are teams that I'm sure you and your neighbors and everybody else talking about right now. What's it like down there, and what are your thoughts heading into this week with the big games for the Sweet 16 Elite 8 trying to head to the Final Four?
Well, the big games for me, I guess, of course, I'm going to be glued about Virginia nonetheless, but I'm also very interested in how Tennessee's going to perform. There's a lot of people that have picked their brackets down here, and Tennessee will go all the way. Now, I don't know how that's going to really play out. Kentucky, you've got such a loyal following of people to the west of us here from where I live, and you've got people here in Southwest Virginia that they think that there's nobody else that plays basketball in this entire world like Kentucky. And so you've got those two teams right there, and then they've had kind of Jekyll and Hyde seasons both when they played each other. Kentucky, of course, really blew out Tennessee in one game, and Tennessee blew out Kentucky in 2 games this past season. So is there a chance that those two maybe could beat before it's over with? Who knows? I'm worried about the possibility of Virginia and Tennessee possibly beating. That could happen. I think there's a lot of people really pulling for Virginia Tech down here to beat Duke because they've done it before and they'll have Mullins back. That could be an interesting matchup as well. But, for me right now, I'm pulling for UVA out of this. I would be happy if the Tennessee comes through and, Virginia ends up dropping out of it. I would be happy with the Tennessee making a run at it because they've been a very deserving team this year. I'm not so keen on Kentucky. I really just don't know where they're going to be at. As for Virginia Tech, I just about saw a Liberty team the other night. Looked like they were going to smoke them in the first half, and then Tech came back and really turned up the wick in that second half and really proved to a lot of people why Buzz Williams and his team should be considered in that Sweet 16 mix. There's a lot of games that's going to be important coming up for this weekend, and I'm just anxious to see how they're going to do, and I'm anxious to see how Virginia is going to do. I think they're squared up against Oregon. Is who they're squared up against right now?
That's correct, Oregon. Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see that. I just don't know about Oregon. I don't know that much about them, but looking at some of the other teams, this Duke and Virginia Tech matchup, that's probably going to be prime watching for me this weekend. I want to see that game and see if Buzz Williams can pull off the miracle and see if they can upset Duke out of this one, because there's a lot of people that like Duke up here as well, and that's going to be a really good matchup.
So we got some March Madness to keep us occupied. Then we got Texas on Sunday, and looking forward to Bristol down the road. Well, Ron, thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.